Depression can make you ask some interesting questions, like, when does old pizza become too old to eat? What are the symptoms of scurvy? How much vitamin D does a person actually need? But way before the internet, this depressed scientist asked an equally as complex question and ended up predicting the future. Sort of. Meet Svante Arrhenius. 127 years ago, he had just finalized a nasty divorce from his first wife and former student, which, red flag, but I digress. Anyways, she took their kid and left, and he was really going through it. And you know what you do when you're going through a really bad breakup? Distraction! Ignore your problems at any and all costs. Arrhenius was like, okay, now I'm just spitballing here. What if we changed the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? What kind of spooky, kooky things would happen to the temperature? Like I said, this dude needed a distraction, so he buried himself in work. And after months of handwriting, pages and pages and pages of calculations, he estimated that if carbon dioxide levels doubled, Earth's temperature would go up some 9 to 11 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a bit higher than modern estimates of 3 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. But considering the time period, lack of equipment, and the fact that this was just a side project for Arrhenius to get his groove back after a messy divorce, he wasn't that far off. He also noticed another thing, that the Industrial Revolution was popping off and people were burning fossil fuels more than they ever had at this point. And Arrhenius was like, huh, look at that. So the more we do that, we can expect the climate to warm. It'll probably take like thousands of years before humans emit enough carbon dioxide to significantly warm the planet. We're fine. Spoiler alert, we're here now, and it definitely didn't take thousands of years. And yes, over the course of its like 4.5 billion year history, Earth's climate has gone through some really intense changes. However, those shifts usually take place over thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. And the changes today are happening way too fast. Since 1850, we've seen average surface temperature jump about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. And that may not sound like a lot, but for fun, and to put it into perspective, let's go back about 20,000 years to the last ice age. Areas that would eventually become Boston and New York were buried beneath layers of ice thousands of feet thick, and overall, temperatures were roughly 5 to 9 degrees colder than today. Bringing it back to this moment, Earth has heated up almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit in just 173 years. That number could climb to nearly 8 degrees of warming by the end of the century. That's pretty close to the same amount of warming coming out of the last ice age, which happened over the course of 20,000 years, not a few hundred. I do want to be clear, 8 degrees Fahrenheit is the worst case scenario when it comes to future warming. More realistically, with current policies in place, we're still on track to reach about 5 degrees Fahrenheit of warming in such a short period of time. That's why scientists today are flipping out. The changes are just happening way too fast. And it's our fault. How do we know? So, the climate doesn't just change for fun. I mean, it's kind of like my decision to get bangs. There's always a reason behind it. For example, shifts in the Earth's orbit, sun's energy, or even volcanic eruptions have triggered past climate to change at one point or another. Let's break down why scientists don't think it's any of those. Starting with the sun. Since the 1970s, satellites have been measuring something called the solar constant. That's the energy released by the sun. So when you're standing outside, sun is coming down on you. Solar constant. If the recent warming were due to the sun, we would see a consistent long-term increase in the sun's energy over the last few decades, and there's no evidence of this. In fact, satellites have been showing that the upper part of the atmosphere has been cooling, while the lower part is heating up. It's almost like there's this invisible shield that's really efficient at trapping heat and preventing it from going out into space. Okay, so it's not the sun. What about the Earth's orbit? I mean, if the Earth had moved closer to the sun, we would see an increase in temperatures. But there are two things with this. We would see an increase in solar activity, and as we've already established, the brightness of the sun hasn't changed. Second thing, changes in Earth's orbit are just painfully slow, like thousands of years slow. And as we mentioned, the warming we're seeing today is happening way too fast for that. Which brings us to our next culprit, greenhouse gases. While there are several of them, the biggie is carbon dioxide simply because of how long it can stay in the atmosphere. Speaking of which, there's more CO2 in the atmosphere today than at any other time in human history. Okay, how do they even know that? One way scientists can tell is by studying tiny air bubbles trapped inside of ice cores. This can give them a glimpse at which gases made up the atmosphere at the time that layer of ice formed. They then compare the amount of carbon dioxide today with the amount trapped in the bubbles. As you can see, the difference is a lot. Like, a lot. Since the 1800s, scientists have understood the basic physics behind how greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, can trap heat and raise temperatures. Basically, more carbon, hotter Earth, less carbon, chillier Earth. While these gases do occur naturally and are part of what makes our planet livable instead of being a big bummer of a giant ice ball, they also come from burning coal, oil, and gas. And when we figured out how to harness fossil fuels for energy, it kind of threw a wrench in that natural balance. To wrap up, it's us. Because since the start of the Industrial Revolution, the planet has been steadily heating up, and CO2 emissions have been building and building and building. Just as Arrhenius predicted during his mathematically driven version of Eat, Pray, Love, human-caused emissions would trigger long-term warming. He just underestimated how fast we would actually get there. So with all of that out of the way, let's move towards solutions and focus on that, which coincidentally we have on our page. Make sure to check us out, and if you like what you see, please subscribe.